Okay, we're back to Darlie Routier Fact and Fiction. You can find that online. It was written by our good friend Mary Moody. I went through the introduction, the who's who, the Routier statements, the arrest warrant, Arthur Barb Davis, and now I'm in the myth. The second myth is the wine rack. Myth number 2. An intruder knocked a glass out of the wine rack. The testimony regarding the wine rack proves that this would be impossible unless someone actually removed the wine glass with his or her hand. The rack had a safety mechanism engineered into it to prevent the glasses from accidentally falling out. James Cron testified that later in the evening, after all fingerprints were finished on it, I shoved the wine rack, rattled it, bumped it, jarred it, to see if any glasses would fall off, and none did. I couldn't dislodge any glasses without tilting it forwards, so far that they would all fall out of their rack. The wine rack was not knocked askew or pushed away from the wall, as it would be as if someone would have bumped or run into it. That's a good point. And there were no broken glasses or bottles inside the rack itself. Several small items, such as a bottle opener, ice tongs, were still balanced on top of their containers. Davis: did you or some other officer balance those two openers on this little round object here? Cron: no. Were these two objects still balanced up there as they are in 36C when you first saw the wine rack? Cron: yes. Davis: the ice tongs, were they perched up here on top of the ice canister when you got up there? Got there too? Cron: yes. Alan Brantley, the FBI profiler that they called in to consult. I'm going to get into a little bit more about him later. But Alan Brantley also testified about the wine rack. You see the glass broken here on the floor and the decanter here that is on its side? But there are very small glasses up here that are seemingly undisturbed. But what is interesting, and what I believe is a contradiction, is that you have this ice bucket, and you have some utensils that go along with that ice bucket that are in place and not disturbed. Especially down here, you have a corkscrew, and you have a can opener and a bottle opener, and some other device that is carefully balanced on this corkscrew. And they are sitting very symmetrically. You also have two glasses on either side of this ice bucket, and they are all very symmetrically placed. And it looks like they haven't been disturbed at all. So if you are to believe someone hits this wine rack with enough force to cause this wine glass to come up over that holder or lip, which is a U shape, then why wasn't there enough force applied to dislodge some of those other items? He makes a good point when he shows that, like, if he would have bumped into it, there's the glasses hanging. If he'd have bumped into it, it would have moved over a little bit. In his cross-examination of James Cron, Mulder suggested that an intruder could have bumped the wine rack, causing one glass to break in the rack before hitting the floor. As proof, he showed Cron what appeared to be one shard on the glass shelf of the wine rack. Mulder: well, put your good eye on this and see if you can't see some glass. He's giving him a little, taking a little pot shot at him because he wears glasses. Well, put your good eye on this and see if you can't see some glass. Cron: I never saw glass there. I didn't see any glass shard on the shelf. See if you can't see a shard. Let me point it out to you. Cron: that looks like reflections of light in the glass shelf. And indeed, many of the photographs show a reflection of small pieces of glass on the floor, produced by the camera's flash. Corroborating Cron's testimony was Charles Lynch, who also inspected the wine rack and found no broken pieces of glass on it. Mulder didn't offer an explanation as to why, if an intruder had broken a glass in the rack itself, Only a single shard landed on the shelf below, and the remainder of the glass fell on the floor, all the way over to the sink area. Nor did he offer an explanation as to why the wine rack was not pushed away from the wall if someone had hit it with enough force to break one and only one glass. Conclusion. The evidence strongly suggests that Darlie herself threw the wine glass onto the floor to simulate a struggle with an intruder. The safety features of the wine rack prevented the glasses from accidentally falling out, and an intruder hooking a single glass with his arm or elbow would be next to impossible. Despite writing in her June 8th statement that there was glass all over the kitchen floor, and much later claiming to have been frantically running towels from the kitchen sink to the family room, she didn't have a single cut on either of her feet. Now we go into this Alan Brantley just a little bit here because they always want to talk about James Cron. How do you walk into an initial walkthrough on a crime scene and within 20 minutes, without looking at any other evidence anywhere else, how do you determine that it was an inside job? Alan Brantley determined the same thing. So did Jimmy Patterson. So did all the other ones. When they first looked at it, like, no, there was no intruder in here. Cron wasn't the only one. Now, when I'm going to get into Alan Brantley, the FBI profiler, he looked at photos of the scene. I don't believe he went to the scene at all. He looked at photos of the scene. Which is the same thing that Vince DeMaio on the defense side did. He looked at photos of the image of the wounds. And in the end of his testimony, he was for the defense. In the end of his testimony, he had to own up to the fact that the best person to give the a medical evaluation on Darlie Routier's condition are the people who treated her. So you can't knock Alan Brantley for only looking at photos and then still uphold anything that Vince DeMaio says on the sports side. So I just want to make it perfectly clear. They always want to minimize James Cron's credentials, minimize Tom Bevel's expertise, and they have to. Everybody has to not know what they're talking about except for Darlie in order for Darlie to be innocent. This wine rack, you see the glasses hanging upside down right here. This wine rack is owned by Ryan Kester now, or he believes he's got the same one. And they say, why would she use this? Why would she stage a scene and not use it? Well, she doesn't have to say anything about anything. She knows that officers are going to come in and see it. She doesn't have to say, yeah, he broke a wine glass. Oh, we were fighting over here. She doesn't have to say that. But she did say that she was fighting at the end of struggling at the end of the bar area with the intruder. So again, this Darlie Routier fact of fiction, you can look it over yourself. Just Google it. I want to be sure and keep up with it. I'm going to do a video on each and every one of these. Every one of these. I want to be sure, and then I'm going to put it into a playlist and be sure that we are able to keep it forever because it's good, hard work by Mary Moody. And remember to join Justice for Devin and Damon Routier on Facebook groups. Peace and chicken grease, y'all.